Cat 1-2, moderate to heavy precipitation, 12 o'clock.
Hi, here at Oshkosh, Teresa Demers with Dan Moore. And Dan completed a Guinness Book of World Records flight this week. He's going to tell us a little bit about it. I think you're going to find some really interesting information about this flight. And I'm happy to introduce Dan to you now. Dan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
and thanks for all the support from Lightspeed.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is you have to accomplish this week?
So on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central, I launched from Durant, Oklahoma, and between Sunday 10 a.m. Central and Monday 10 a.m. Central, I actually landed here at Oshkosh at about 9:14 a.m., which is about 14 minutes after the event really starts, right? So I covered 30 states in 24 hours in my Beechcraft Bonanza. So that after submitting all the proof, I've got hours and hours of video and satellite tracking and so forth and so on. After submitting all that to Guinness, in about 2 to 3 months, I'll receive the official record. But I have all that evidence collected, so, I know how the process goes because this is my second world record. I'm pretty confident that that's all going to go pretty smoothly.
Right. Well, it's fascinating, and congratulations on accomplishing it. What motivates you to want to do these world record flights?
Nobody else has done them. Because I can. Yeah, I've always had this sort of inner drive to do things. I don't want to say my own way, but to do things differently.
Right.
And to do things that other people have never done. And my wife says, "Why do you want to do this?" And it's like, she knows me well enough to know that that's who I am. Yeah. And she's been very gracious because this is a lot of extra stress and so forth on her and our sons. But she's my number one supporter, obviously. Right. But she totally understands who I am, and she's letting me do this. And it really is something that I like. People are like, how can you enjoy sitting in an airplane for that long? It's not the sitting in the airplane part. It's like, okay, I want to achieve this goal that I've set for myself. Yeah. And it's almost, I enjoy the people that come up and say, hey, I know who you are. Yeah. That was really great what you did. But it's really, for me, the inner satisfaction of doing something that nobody has yet accomplished. Now, 3 months from now, somebody may do 31 states, and that's great. But I've also motivated them to do something they've never done. So that's really what it is for me.
Well, I think pilots really relate to your story. I think that just that inner spirit that pilots have is to want to accomplish things and goals. And so, and since our audience is largely pilots, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience, myself included, have some questions. So you did this in 24 hours. You did it as a solo pilot. Obviously, we have, human factors, fatigue could set in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you prepared for that to make sure that you stayed safe?
Well, I am on the NBAA safety committee, so, I want to present a attitude of safety, which is how I fly. I'm a pilot examiner, and I feel like, I want people to understand this isn't something you just get up and do one morning. I like to use the comparison of maybe running a long distance race, such as a marathon. If the marathon's on Friday, you're not going to get up Thursday and be like, okay, it's time to run a marathon, right? This is like, months and months and months of logistical planning, but also preparing yourself physically for the event. And that the most important things that I've done in that regard is getting lots of sleep prior to it. So forcing yourself to go to bed much earlier than you normally would, and then sleeping as long as you possibly can for a long period of time before the event. So about 2 weeks ago, I started, getting about 10 hours of sleep each night, because you're banking that sleep that's getting you reset and ready. That's one of the things. The other thing is weaning myself off of caffeine. So stop drinking caffeinated drinks a couple weeks ahead. And so what that does is it kind of gets you prepared that if you need that extra boost for a few hours, and the NTSB's done studies about that and proven that that's a good short-term solution, but it has to be used at the right time.
Right.
Because if you run out of steam at the wrong time, you could actually be worse off. So you got to be very careful with that. And then the third thing was oxygen. So I have a portable oxygen system that I carry in my Bonanza pretty frequently. And so from about midnight, where I landed for my fuel stop in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, from that point forward all the way here to Oshkosh, I was breathing oxygen the whole time, pure oxygen. And so that kind of was like, that really helps. I don't know if you've ever done it before in an airplane, but your vision improves, your concentration improves. It really makes your body feel like it's below sea level. So you really, really have a much better level of concentration. So those are some of the aspects of preparing yourself prior to the event. And I mean, I do a lot of long days of flying. It's not uncommon for me to get in my Bonanza, fly to a flight school, do 3 flight tests, and then fly home in one day. So I don't, I've done this long days for quite a while. So I've also acclimated my body to that over time. So, it was a concern. I won't deny that. It was a concern for me. But I promised my wife, and I was, if I got to a point where I just needed to stop and rest, I had planned to cut corners if I needed to, but I felt good the whole way around. So I'm like, I'm going to just keep going. And I even surprised myself because, I didn't really know that I would get 30.
Yeah.
I planned for 25 to 30, but I didn't, there's so many variables, the weather, traffic, airports, different things happening. And I had to change some of the airports. I made one little boo-boo too. So in navigation, I did have a waypoint in my flight plan, but overall, I mean, that's how you get yourself ready for this kind of thing. Take all the variables that you can take out so that when the variables come up, like, thunderstorms in the summer, that's going to happen. You're ready to deal with those and you're mentally and physically prepared to do this.
Right. So speaking of the variables and the unknowns and for long flight, were there any points along the way where you kind of faced a go, no-go decision and what was that and what were the factors?
Well, I'll tell you about my boo-boo. I had pre-programmed all the flight plans into my GPS prior to leaving.
Right.
And somehow I left out Texarkana, which was my Arkansas stop. And so I got past it and I realized I was too far past it to go back because I would waste too much time. And I'm like, oh no, now it's going to be 29, and I'm thinking in my mind anyway. But then I realized I was going to cross Arkansas again. And I'm like, oh, I'm saved, right? But the biggest variables were there were some unforecast thunderstorms actually really near to my home airport between Asheville, North Carolina, and my home airport. So I wasn't able to land at Asheville. I landed in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Fortunately, I've been there. It's a really narrow runway. The trees are really close. Trees are on both ends, lots of obstacles. But I had been there before because it's not far from my home base. And then I had to cut through a bunch. I was VFR at 13.5 going around some thunderstorms. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Let's get an IFR. And then if I need to go in the clouds, I can. And so I got the IFR. And it turns out after I went to 13, I was VFR the rest of the way anyway. So I could have kept doing it, but it worked out fine.
So you did this as a solo pilot, and you've got your beautiful family out here today. So you're lovely to see them, and I know they've been supporting you. And did you have any ground crew, that was supporting you as well? Was anyone helping you with the navigation or weather or that kind of stuff?
Well, one of my sponsors was Titan Aviation Fuels, who provides all the fuel here at Oshkosh. So if you've gotten fuel here, you've been a Titan Aviation customer.
Good.
They're great folks. All the FBOs I stopped at for fuel were Titan Aviation. And so I had talked to them all prior to this, and they were like Johnny on the spot. Literally, I would shut down. The truck was at the airplane by the time the prop stopped turning. They were putting fuel in the airplane. I'm in the FBO to use the facility, back out. They've got my credit card on file. I get in the plane and I'm gone. And that was
like a NASCAR pit stop.
Oh yeah, I would say no more. And I had planned 30 minutes for those stops, but I was able to I was probably getting out in 10 or 15 minutes, which is really hard to put yourself back in an airplane that you already been in for 10 or 12 hours. You want to stay in the FBO and drink something and have a route, but you just got to keep going.
Well, just last question. I know you've mentioned you've come to Oshkosh for 35, 36 years or something, and this one is particularly poignant, not just because you achieved the record, but personally for you as well.
Yeah, came here first in 1984 with my dad. We came many, many times, and we'd always get our picture taken by the arch.
Yeah.
But Delmar Benjamin used to park his GB there. For you old-timers like me, you're all going to know what I'm talking about. And my dad and I got our photo taken there, and my brother. My brother was here yesterday. So I know my dad would be really proud of me if he could have seen me parked in front of the arch. But, that part just, I'll try not to get choked up about it. But it was a really special moment for me to be parked out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it's a great accomplishment. We've been proud to be a part of it with you. I think your story is really inspirational and educational, so for other people that are thinking about trying to create a world record, it's possible, but there's a lot of preparation, a lot of, that not just the preparation for this flight, but your years of flight training.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say thanks so much for the Delta Zulu.
Of course.
I mean, honestly, I've been using your headset since about 2007, and I have flown Lightspeed headsets for easily 6,000 to 7,000 hours. So I'm a dedicated customer, and the Delta Zulu is just such a great headset. Not that the other ones are bad, but this one is just a huge leap forward. And for somebody with 11,000 hours of flight timing, you're definitely going to lose some hearing in that part. And the adjustable nature that you can adjust those frequencies in the headset, it was mind-boggling how much better I heard everything once that was there. And I mean, like, the sound quality is so good. You may want to use these as your day-to-day music headset. I mean, really, they're awesome. They're just really good. It is the best headset I've ever had on my head.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bobcat 1-2.